She's a writer of Playing Long After Us, a collection of stories told through images by Shaira Luna and written by Marna Mignano and Anton Lumali. So she'll be talking about storytelling through photos. And here she is. Shaira Luna, everyone.
Hi everyone, can you hear me and see me clearly? Hello? Okay, this is better. Just put this here. Okay. Hi, is it okay if I sit down?
Yes.
But I can see the screen. Okay, hello. I'm welcoming myself to Komikon. This is my first ever. And I'm quite excited and a little scared, honestly. I was wearing glasses kanina, then when I entered, everyone was wearing glasses, so I took mine off. I didn't want to be pretentious. Okay, anyway, thanks for being here. This is just going to be a very informal talk about my very first photo book entitled Playing Long After Us, and this is the book. It's published by Summit Books. Let's give a round of applause to Summit Books. They're over here. And this is one of the photos in the book, Playing Long After Us. I actually have 3 books that are in the Komikon, so I shot All That Darkness Allows, the one you won, the one they were giving away. That's a horror book by Summit Books, and then my book, Playing Long After Us, and Also Stay by Sarge La Cuesta. He's going to be here tomorrow, so I highly suggest you come back tomorrow to meet him and the other artists in the book. Okay, so I'm sure you're wondering what a book like this is doing in Komikon. Actually, when they asked me to do a talk here, I was like, are you sure? Because first of all, it's not a comic book, but I learned that it actually falls under the category of a graphic novel, which explains a lot because when I go to Fully Booked and I go to book sale, I really can't find the book. Yun pala, it's near the graphic novel section. Have any of you held it or seen it? Let me pass one around so you can kind of take a look around inside the book. Okay, so I will just be talking about the concept of the book for those of you who aren't familiar with it. So basically the book is 5 different stories. They are set from the 1950s to the 1990s. So each chapter is a different decade. And I had to research this. I wanted to be sure that this was a graphic novel, and I came across these definitions. You don't need to read it, but I was just reassuring myself that I had the right to be in this room. So it says that a graphic novel is a book made out of comics content, and it's distinguished from the term comic book because it includes fiction, non-fiction, blah, blah, blah. You can just Google that yourselves. And you don't need to read this either, this is solely for me. But since it is a continually evolving medium, especially in the digital age, the term is still subject to much criticism and debate. So we will claim it. My book is a graphic novel. And I hope you enjoy reading it later on. Okay, so now to the stories in the book. Let me give you a brief background about what I do as a photographer. I have to introduce myself. I'm mainly a fashion and commercial photographer. I do a lot of advertising. I do a lot of commercial shoots, editorial shoots, basically magazine covers you see or the billboards on EDSA. That's really what I do for a living. But in my spare time, all I really want to do is shoot. And a lot of my images are always inspired by past eras, famous people in the 60s and the 70s. I just really like recreating things from the past. So I go as far back as recreating things from like these eras, like Renaissance paintings, and all the clothes are always from thrift shops and just DIY. I especially love the 1960s. I love naming my albums. These are just all on Facebook, by the way. I just vomit my photos on Facebook. So like this, for example, was a tribute to Bob Dylan. I named the entire album Tangled Up in Blue. All the photos were inspired by lyrics in the song. As you can see, I really love doing the 60s, so this is very inspired by Playboy. I have a huge collection of Playboy magazines from the 60s. And I'm just so in love with everything from that decade. The makeup, clothes, the color, how they process their film. So every morning, that's what I do, just research. And then I also love doing shoots that look like movies. So this isn't a movie, I really just shoot it that way. I just like making things look like they're screenshots from films. This is really just a corner in a studio, and then all the props I bought from Bangkal or we made at home. Everything is really just DIY, but you know, I think all these years I've just really tried to work and learn to make magic out of the little things I have. And continuing on with the movie theme, so even if there aren't any props, even if there's no bonggang lighting, I think it's really the mood I try to set. I love directing photo shoots. Even if they're not moving, I want them to feel like you were there. So that's really what I like doing. So when I was approached by Summon Books and they asked me if I wanted to do a book, I was super hesitant because I mean, you know, a book's kind of a big deal sometimes, I guess. And I don't know, I've just become so used to throwing up my photos on Tumblr, if you're still on Tumblr, or Instagram, and it just never occurred to me that the photos could belong on a book. So when they asked what I wanted to do, I said, well, you know, we'll just do the stuff I do for my Facebook, just my like cinematic stories or my 1950s to 1960s stories. And they said, what era do you want to do? I'm like, lahat. But of course, that wasn't possible because we only have a limited number of pages. So I chose the 50s to the 90s. We tried going past the 90s, pero medyo napiga na ako dun. It's like I didn't know if I could do NSYNC or Britney Spears any justice. So I stopped at the 90s. And because I like naming my albums after songs, I came up with a list of my favorite songs per era, and I sent this to the writers, Anton, O'Malley, and Marla Mignano, their husband and wife. So I sent them like my track list. So these are my favorite songs from the 1950s. I don't know if you are familiar with any of these, but there's Misty, Chances Are, When Sunny Gets Blue, I love that song. 1960s, it was so hard for me to narrow down because I love Motown in general, so I really had to narrow down the titles, and I had to think of titles that could possibly work as narratives. The 1970s was also hard for me to narrow down. There's so many good songs. I don't think I have Bee Gees in there, but I would have loved to include that. Okay, 1980s. Okay, so we have Bizarre Love Triangle, we have songs by Stevie Nicks. I just have so many inspirations. I think narrowing down my inspirations is the hardest part of this book. 1990s, I was born in the 90s, but some of my favorite songs are Crash Into Me by Dave Matthews Band, and I was the hugest Alanis Morissette fan. And I cried my eyes out when I couldn't watch her concert when she came here. So I sent this list to the writers, and then they helped me select one song per era, and that was going to be the story for each chapter that we were going to shoot. Okay, let's move on to the photographs, which is mainly what the book is composed of. So I'll just show you like a few photos per chapter. I won't show everything because that's when you should buy the book. Okay, so this was the mood board I sent to my actors for my 1970 chapter. I was coordinating this from here because I shot the 1970s chapter in Los Angeles. So all our communication back and forth was just through email, and so and to give them a better idea of what I had in mind, I sent them this mood board. A lot of the photos are of Jane Birkin, and we have some of Keith Richards. It's really just the kind of mood I wanted. I wasn't going to copy the photos exactly, but you know, I just wanted to give them a feel of what I was going to be shooting with them. Now, the clothes and the props for me are very essential when it comes to telling stories. As I mentioned earlier, most of the things I use for my photo shoots are from the ukay-ukay or are from Bangkal thrift shops. I really love doing the set design and making props and just just imagining what things could be. So when I'm actually going to talk about this first. Sorry, that's kinilig ako. So let me show you the clothes from the 1990s chapter. So just take a look at them. Okay, this is from chapter 5. This is the 1990s. So that's outfit 1, outfit 2, outfit 3, and outfit 4. I have a very, oh no, not me, and outfit 4. From the very beginning when I knew I was going to do the 90s, I knew I had to insert Alanis in there. So all the clothes she wore in this chapter were directly inspired by Alanis' ironic music video. Over here. So if you watch that video, Alanis is 4 different characters, and I think that was just a little detail in there that just felt like a big part of me. It was in the book, so I really had to include that there. If you watch the video, it's really fun. And that's me shopping for clothes in thrift stores. I had to haul all the props and put them in the truck. I would go to swap meets, and on the plane to the States, I would draw the materials for the book. I actually brought them here, like I had to preserve them. So I would just draw, I would reference cards from the 1960s. I bought crayons from the airport. So this is really like a work of love. And that's what the props look like in the photos. So that's the 1960s chapter, this is the 1970s chapter. Locations and sets are also super important when you're telling a story. This is from the 1980s chapter, and we shot this in an old house. This is actually Anton, who's one of the writers. This is his Lola's house, and it was built and lived in the 80s, so I thought it would be the perfect location for the shoot. We had to remove the monkeys on the window because it's actually preschool. So, and this is the kitchen. It really feels like the 80s. I don't know. I mean, that's just what I think. But and if you recognize them, that's 4 of spades, because I was really trying to cast, and they were really the only ones who looked like they could be from the 80s. I had to get an old car. I'm a little obsessed. So it was also important for me that there would be a car in at least one chapter, and we were able to rent this Toyota Crown, which is such a great car from the 80s. And for the 1950s chapter, I was able to shoot in Ilustrado, which is an old restaurant in Intramuros. And this chapter actually wanted to feel like a stage set. I wanted it to feel like you were looking at a photo of a stage play. So if you look at the photos in the book, they're kind of just static for the first few pages. And sometimes it just takes, imagining lighting and really trying to see how else you can transform the place. I think shooting for as long as I have has really trained my eye to look at the place and then imagine it looking like something else. It's also the same restaurant. In daylight, like during regular operation hours, it doesn't look like that. Now, one of the challenges we encountered while shooting the book, of course, were modern appliances or gadgets or electronics, and no matter how much you try to avoid them, they will show up in the photos. So I'm gonna show you some of the edits we had to do. I know it looks like magic, but really we have to clean stuff. Did you clean this? No? Oh, I thought you cleaned it. Okay, so we shot this in a bedroom, but she had all these Bratz dolls, and she had like cars, so we had to crop that out. In the background here, there are like these huge pickups and and Fortuners, so we had to remove those too. So this actually was already a perfect layout, and then when I looked closer, my huge DSLR was in the background. So they didn't have that in the 70s unless there's time travel, but we had to remove my DSLR. This was the mom of one of the kids in chapter 2, so we had to remove her too. It was kind of funny. It was really like that game you have to encircle like ano yung mali. So this was quite fun during the proofing. Here we have a modern telephone, and over here we have another SUV. So I'm really happy that there were sets of eyes just looking and looking at the photos, making sure that there wasn't like a cell phone or what else is modern, like an iPod or anything in the photos, because it wouldn't really feel authentic if you spotted anything like that. One of the most important parts, I think, of the book is the book design. And since you love comics, I know you know how essential this is to a good story. Sometimes the story is good, but you get turned off by the design. So I really wanted to get someone who understood where I was coming from. I wanted the book to look like a photo album. I wanted it to look like a record. I wanted it to look like a postcard. And lots of other things that are kind of hard to explain if you're not really in the zone of being nostalgic and really loving things from your past. And the layouts are basically like collages, I would say. There are lots of textures and overlays and cutouts. For example, the BTS part of the book. This is on the back of the book, so these are photos from when we were making or shooting the book abroad. I didn't want the book to feel too much like an art book. I wanted people to pick it up and just sort of reminisce and really linger on the page a little bit without being too consumed by the words. So I just wanted it, I'm so sorry, I just wanted it to feel like a photo album. And one of the things I have to point out about the book design is that Patrick Hamora must be a madman, because the book designer actually has many different handwritings. So I don't know how he did this, but for each chapter he was writing and doodling, and this is all Patrick, so that is a talent. He has different handwritings for each of the chapters and each of the characters. So for the 80s, he used a pencil pen. For the 60s, it's like an American cursive. He's so weird, that guy. He should be here. Okay, the next one. So this is his handwriting for one of the characters in the 70s. And the next photo is another character in the 1970s. So that's the handwriting of the guy. So I think little things like that really contribute to how nostalgic the book feels and how comforting almost the notes feel. It feels like you're reading, it really feels like you're reading someone's handwriting, or it feels like you're really tapping into someone's memory. So I really loved what he did. I didn't actually change anything. I didn't change, literally didn't change anything. When I saw the proofs, I'm like, I love you. That's all. I would answer Patrick in all caps, like, yes, nothing to say, check. And then I think it was Anton's idea to have the little paper boats folded, and this is the cover of the 1970s chapter, and the song they chose was So Far Away. This is a song by Carole King. Do you know that song? It's a really nice song. I should play it for you. We have time now, since we're all just making chica here anyway. It's one of my favorite songs. Oh, you know that beep was from Summit Books. Is that you? Let me play the song for you. Actually, all the songs are on Spotify. I made a playlist, so you can just look for Playing Long After Us. So this is the song by Carole King. Daming hugot na. But this is one of the sadder chapters. Honestly, I had to tell Anton, can we make the last chapter happy, because a lot, like the first and second chapters are a little sad. But the story of this is that the man keeps remembering his wife, and he has all the receipts and everything, and in the end we find out she's no longer with him, so that's why the title is So Far Away. Sad, no? But it gets better in the end. Okay, so we had a couple of choices for the cover. this was the first one because again the brief I gave was that I wanted it to look like a placa from the 60s or really just a scrapbook or a slum book, and I really actually like this one. And then this is another version. Same photo. This photo wasn't shot for the book. It's from one of my past shoots, and the girl's lying on top of old records, so I guess that just made it the perfect choice for the book. And Leo was the one who. Oh yeah, we had to edit the tag on the pants. Oh, did you do this? Oh, you commented that. But yeah, we had to, fix a few details, and finally the book was delivered. So that's the book. And Leo, who's not here, he was the one who decided or figured out that this would be the better layout to really zoom in on the photo and just remove the border, so it would be a little more striking on the shelves. I really want to extend my gratitude to the writers of the book, Anton, Ninamali, and Marla. Basically what we did was to just go back and forth. So I shot all the images. I would send the photos to them via Dropbox, and that's when they composed the story. So it's really amazing what they did. They worked magic. And of course, Patrick Amora, that evil genius behind all those fonts. And there's a really beautiful foreword by Sarge Lacuesta, the Palanca Award-winning and National Book Award-winning author Sarge Lacuesta, for the beautiful foreword. And of course, thank you to Summit Books for giving me this opportunity to I really never would have. Maybe not like in 10 years or so, but this was really a fun experience, and I would probably do it again if we sold enough books. I'm just joking. Okay, yeah, that's it. Do you have any questions? It's easier to understand if you have the book in your hands. There's one being passed around, so you can check it out.
Do you have any questions?
I'll play my songs, but it's not too quiet. It's okay, you can ask anything. It's okay. There, that's better. Okay. So anyone have any questions at all? Yes? Okay. Disclaimer, I'm not so deep, so.
Hello.
Hey.
My question is, when you were taking photos for this, did you already have a story in mind, or was that a collaboration with the people writing? And if yes, how do you unfold a story through pictures?
So we decided on the titles first. So as you may have seen in one of my earlier slides, I sent lists of songs that could possibly be titles for the chapters. So when we decided on the titles of the chapters, for example, chapter 1 was It's Only Make Believe, that's when we started brainstorming, like what could be a story in the 50s that had to do with make-believe. So initially the story for the 50s was that they were going to be in a movie theater, and then the popcorn guy would keep seeing this beautiful girl coming in with another guy every week to see a movie, and then he would just keep daydreaming that he would be the next guy she would date, and then he'd watch the movies and look at the beautiful actresses and wish that he were dating them too. But we couldn't afford a movie theater. Basically, and that's when we had to change the story. So we really worked with the titles first, and then whatever curveballs were thrown our way, we just had to work around it. Another encounter was for the 1960s. If you look at the book, they're playing in the snow, but the original story was supposed to be in summer camp. But when I flew abroad, it was winter. So, we really have to, I had to message them, guys, it's winter, there's no way summer camp's gonna work. So we just kind of decide on the spot. Of course, taking into consideration everyone we've booked, all the props we have, all the clothes that we have. And I guess we had the outline to work with, but we were very flexible, and also kind of the way I shoot, even for editorials. You know, sometimes, I mean, a lot of times things won't go your way and you have to be quick about it, as to not waste anyone's time, and to also make the shoot still fun and productive. So yeah, it was so much fun shooting. would do it again. Scared when they ask questions. They're so serious.
Shaira, a big fan of your stuff.
Thank you.
As a photographer myself, every time I see your photos, not only am I inspired by the looks and all, but I feel something.
Thank you.
So my question is, your photos look so natural, pero like, what is it like to prep for a Shaira Luna shoot?
Well, I'll divide that question into thank you. Thanks. Aw, feels. So, preparing for commercial shoots, for example, like for editorial shoots, I research, I look at the location, I look at the team, I want to know. I've worked with a lot of people, so when I see the list of like the hair and makeup, I kind of know how fast they work or what they can do. I know the fashion editor, I kind of know the clothes. So preparation in that sense is really just trying to come up or meet their board or their peg. So shooting for commercial shoots is really kind of just matchy. Like I have to please you and you and you and you, and it gets printed. Okay, we move, we move on. But for personal work, because it's really what consumes me, I guess everything I do is just linked to, I don't know, images or creating stuff. I don't differentiate between buying clothes for shoots and buying clothes for myself. There's hardly any line anymore. Even the stuff I buy for my house always ends up in my shoots. Preparing for, let's say, an era-based shoot, maybe weeks before I'm already digging my way through an ukay-ukay. I'm probably knee-deep in bangkal looking for, I don't know, like people ends or chair ends or whatever. I spend a lot of time casting. I really make sure I have the right people and the right look, or even if they don't look that way, you can imagine them a certain way with, for example, hair and makeup. And I know it seems kind of shallow to some people, but hair and makeup, especially for the kind of work I do, and the eras I like to shoot, is really important. And I research a lot. I don't call it research, it's just what I do on a normal basis. When I wake up, I'm just scrolling through random things. I just let them sit there, and then when the time comes for me to shoot, I guess they just kind of get pulled out and put in the right places. But sometimes there's no preparation at all. Maybe if you put me in a room with a person and there's nothing, no props, no makeup, no nothing, that's when the feelings come in. That's when you have to feel something. They could be wearing a white shirt or wearing nothing. There could be no lights, lots of lights, bad lights. It really comes down to the connection between you and who you're shooting. And I don't think that's photography anymore. I think that's really trying to connect with people on another level, and it just so happens that I take photos.
I think we can have one more question. One last question? Anyone? None? Don't be shy.
I can tell you where I ukay. Makati Square.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I'm primarily a graphic artist myself, and gradually I learned to appreciate photography, and my creative process is brevity, the ability to convey a lot of things in a single short word or prose is kind of one of my goals when creating stuff. So photography is a really interesting medium in terms of art. So I'm kind of curious how one could convey a message or sorry. So I'm kind of curious if how a photographer expresses a lot of emotions or messages in such a simple way without being too convoluted or too complex, too saturated for oops, for
It's okay. Kind
because
of get
there
what
are
you mean.
some form of arts that is
They're
too
really trying to
complex.
say something, right?
Then in photography, you can basically just take a photo and it means a lot of things. Really. So
Well, with this, I'll just answer the context of this book. I don't talk very much. I mean, I don't meet Chica very much. I'm not at all opinionated. I would be eaten alive in a debate. You know, I can't hold my own because I tend to be like, oh, you're right and you're right too. And I think my pictures kind of give off that vibe, and I never ever want my photos to be preachy or too deep. I had an interview yesterday, and I remember mentioning that I want the photos to always be accessible. When you see some of the pictures, I guess the magic comes when you kind of just linger and not really focus on the picture, but remember something that you experienced in the past. That's mainly the goal of the images in the book. If you could remember a song from one of the photos, if you could remember your funny uncle, that's really all my images in the book want to do. To just give you a warm, fuzzy feeling. I think that's what nostalgia does, and I think that's why I shoot a lot of nostalgia, because it says a lot, but it's just talking. It's not telling you what to feel or what to do. They're just there. They're just like a floating memory. And I used to do graphic design before I became a photographer, so I know what you mean by trying to compress everything into one photo, especially if you have like 20 sponsors and the door charge is 20 bucks, and one of the company's logos is like eating all the rest. You know what you mean? I like to keep things simple. I make all the preparations beforehand so that when it comes to the actual photo, you don't feel like I wrung like a cloth or something. When you see the photo, I just want you to see that it's there and make your own memories out of it.
Okay, so thank you everyone for